Now, I will be truthful with you. Anybody that lived in the 70s or the 80s, if you came across a guy cruising by you with a four-door car, you laughed at him. They were wannabes. And there were plenty of them. Not like there are today, but there were plenty of them where they got the car from their parents. It was a four-door Fairlane or a four-door Maverick or a four-door something. And they put mags on there and people used to laugh and thanks to... man, I just keep looking down the side of this car. I'm happy how straight I got it. And it's not even outside. Thanks to Mitsubishi with the Evo. Thanks to Subaru. With their models, whatever, WRX and all the different models. Four doors became acceptable. Thanks to, whatever the hell they were called, whatever they call those cars, rally cars. Made four doors acceptable. Now, the people that see these cars are a younger generation, and they accept the four doors. Okay, wagons have come into play over the last, I'm going to say 10 years. They've come on full strong. Why did they come full strong? I'm not 100% sure, but there is no difference between going to the store today and buying an SUV and going to the store back then and buying a wagon, except an SUV is more acceptable with four doors. Same thing that made four doors more acceptable. SUVs, Explorers with four doors were more acceptable than the two-door Explorers. Okay, four doors have become in fashion, even though back in the day the doors were so small you couldn't get in and out of them. And that just made the front door even tighter. When you see a wagon, you expect it to be a four-door because the numbers that came in two doors were very limited. Well, the amount of cars that were made in two-door wagons were limited, and the numbers that people ordered were limited because they were usually family vehicles. Like my black 64 never came in a two-door. I converted that car to a two-door. To anybody that's new to the channel, when I did it the right way with two-door doors and two-door quarter panels. I see people do it all different ways, and some you could tell, and some look factory. I got factory rear windows in the car. This one here, when we started the project, I was looking for a Hornet sedan that I could steal the quarters and doors off of. And Hornet sedans are one of the harder ones to find. There's certain year Concord you could use, but they're like non-existent. But it had to be a two-door sedan, could not be a hatchback. And the couple that I found, it was just no good. I was going to spend as much on one of those cars to cut it up as I did probably on this project. And it just didn't make sense to me. Would I love for this thing to be a two-door? Sure. Because to my knowledge, I've never seen one. I don't remember ever seeing one. I never remember anybody converting one. Are they convertible? Sure. It's the same window opening, so that makes it easier to do it. Would I love to do it? Sure, that would have really made the car super sweet. But being a four-door, I don't know. I remember, here comes story time. When I first put the wagon together, I got no pictures of it. Oh, yeah, there it is. That's the first year with the wagon right there. You can see the oil pan sticking out the bottom. You can see the shifter cable. These skinny wheels, factory skinny wheels with skinny tires on it, just like Junior has. These are 15x4s. I had the 15x7s in the back, okay, with the slicks, but you couldn't see the letters. Had hubcaps all around, painted wheels. Okay, nothing sticking to the hood. Still a four-door. Couldn't see the exhaust. And when the car was not running, you just thought it was an old car sitting in a parking lot. I used to bring it to cruise night. I'd open the hood. Everything was painted factory under the hood, including the valve covers and the intake, even though none of it was. Nobody ever, for some reason, noticed the nitrous on it, and nobody ever noticed that the intake was far from factory when it was the single 4-barrel, until I would go to leave cruise night and fire it up. Because the car was as loud then as it is now. And then people would stand up and look to see where it was coming from, and they didn't believe it was coming out of this car. But when the car looked like that, I had Junior in the passenger seat. And Junior was lucky he was up to my shoulders back then. I remember when that motor was put together, I think Junior was 7. I have pictures of Junior tightening the connecting rods and tightening the head bolts and that. He did them. I have pictures of him measuring the crankshaft with micrometers and a ball bearing, which is an old trick. All the different ways I could have shown him. I had a little more patience back then. But whatever. And we went side by side up against a brand new Mustang sitting on the avenue, and it was the husband, wife, and kid in the back seat, and it was me and Junior in that, and they were to the left of me, and they could hear the rumble, but to a wife and a little kid, they hear the rumble, they just think it's an old shitbox car that the exhaust fell off of. And obviously the owner of this Mustang didn't know what he was listening to. And I egged them on for a race. And the car was, you could see the car was new. It was the new model. Now we're going back to like 05, 06. And this guy just figured he'd put me to shame. He'd be proud in front of his family and whatever it was. By the time I hit second gear, you could barely see him in the smoke. We launched the car. It went sideways. We were spun at first and second, and then we're gone in third. And he was just like laying back there trying to catch me. And I mean, Junior was smiling ear to ear. That was like Junior's shining moment to hot rods, like my moment. I remember my moment when I was a kid, but we won't talk about this second. That was Junior's shining moment. And that guy had to convince his family somehow how he just lost to a piece of shit wagon with an exhaust leak. And no nitrous, just motor. My thing was, if anybody watches 805 Road King, he's restoring a little engine right now that was seized. Okay, that was my first engine that I've ever worked on. When I was a little child, it was given to me just the way you see him working on it, minus the fuel tank. It was taken off a real lawnmower, the ones with the reels, and it was handed to me. I bolted it to my play school workbench when I was a child, poked holes in the top, used the plastic bolts, and my oldest brother convinced my parents that it was perfectly safe because he was 10 years older than me, and we had, two in between. It was perfectly safe. There was no carburetor, there was no gas, there was nothing that could obviously hurt him. Well, I was wise. I put gas in a little bottle. I squeezed it in the carburetor. I put the cord around it and pulled it. And it started, for a couple seconds. And everybody was outside the house and I lost the motor. But that wasn't my shining moment. My shining moment was when, back in the mid-'70s, street racing was hot. Well, it is now too, but it was a little different. It was hot because now the cars that are street racing are, these cars are tuned, they're this, they're that, they're 1,000 horsepower, 1,200. It wasn't like that back then. Back then it was, the muscle cars were full force and people were street racing. And to stay competitive, my brother bought a 68 Camaro, big block car from Richie Zool, who was a super stock driver, pro stock driver, super stock, whatever one he was. That's what this carburetors came from. To stay competitive. And he hooked me. Now, we had cars before that. He hooked me when he took me to the corner, warmed up the slicks, and I looked at the sky for the first time. Came back down, hit second, and I could have sworn I saw it a second time, but I don't think I did. I was so sunken into the seat, I didn't even know what was going on. That's when I got hooked. Everybody has a reason when they get hooked. And so that was 43 years ago, at least, on the car side. And before that, he had, now like I said, all my brothers had cars. I mean, at one point we had, well, I could just name a few, the 68 big block Camaro, the 68 Chevelle big block, the 65 Le Mans, which was a 326, that wasn't a big block, but at least it was a 4-speed. My other brother had a 70 Roadrunner, obviously big blocks. All Roadrunners are big blocks. If it's not a big block, it's not a Roadrunner. Then he had the Mustang Fastback 68. My other brother had the early 70s Camaro with the Macbeth's 350 in it. Well, that had the parachute on it. That's where the parachute came from. My wagon is actually off his car in a different case, but the chute is the same. 67 Cougar XR7 with a 70 351 Cleveland 4-speed top loader and a 430 somethings in the rear, 433s, 431s in the rear, with a 9-inch. That car was fun. Plenty more, plenty more. Handful of vets between them, 64s and 65s. Then later on in life, 69s and 70s. Big block cars, small block cars. Now we're down to the 68 AMX, the 68 Rambler American, the 64 wagon I have, the 78, down to a 55 Pro Mod, a 66 Chevelle big block, a 78 to 82 or 81, I guess that is, Super Comp car, Camaro, a handful of fully restored Z28 302 cars. Got a Fairlane convertible, and I think that's all that's left in the family right now. So, yeah, the family's hooked, and the one thing that should separate them is the one thing that divides them. The one thing that should unite them is the one thing that divides them. I am the AMC guy. To me, this is what I think. I'll say it quick. To become an AMC guy coming from a family that was mostly big block Chevy, and all the people that came to my house had big block Chevys. Everything was a big block Chevy. Every time the hood opened, I saw the same motor in it. Okay? For me to switch from that to this is almost like when you talk to somebody and they've converted their religion. Because when someone tells me they've converted their religion to whatever it is, it doesn't matter what you believe in to me. But when you tell me you converted, that means you thought about it. And I respect that a lot. Even if I don't believe in the religion, it doesn't matter to me. I respect it. And for me to convert, that took a lot of love, passion, and thinking. So I believe in the product. I do not believe this product was any shittier than the other ones. It's been in discussion many times between me and my friends. Body-wise, this is no shittier than a Ford and a Mopar. Actually, this is stronger than most of the Ford products that came out. We agree that the shittiest ones were the Fords, and that's coming from Ford guys. Built really bad, the bodies. Then second in line was the Mopars. Then we felt this, and then the Chevys were on the top with GM products. Were built the most robust. That don't mean they lasted any longer in the salt, but just the design and strength factor behind it. The saying "body by Fisher." We still believe in our grouping that it is superior. So, and like I said, an AMC guy has only had a handful of years, 3 years. Let me bend those fingers down. They're too old. They hurt. 3 years of performance under our belt, and we're still carrying it on. We still got cars in the 7 seconds with no nitrous. So I call that good. I think they were far ahead of their time. Every car today is an AMC. Every car today uses parts from different manufacturers from around the world. Okay, even Toyota. Good, bad, or indifferent. It allowed them to purchase good parts. I mean, when you look at it, their 6-cylinder was excellent. Okay, when they switched over to the Chrysler Tranny, another excellent product. Their rear was a Dana. The problems with the axle nuts. Okay, they could have got away from that. Why they chose to continue doing that after all the problems with the Jeeps, I'm not 100% sure. But then again, the car market faded away by then anyway. But why they held on so long with the Jeeps, I don't know. Because Jeeps started out with solid axles. Alternators, GM. Good way to go. Distributor, ignition system, GM. Well, originally it was Prestolite, but it was GM. Then it went to Ford. Okay, they were a little iffy. The distributors are awesome. The boxes, you carried an extra one. Another good product. Brakes up front, all over the place. The majority of the stuff I deal with are Ford brakes. Not Ford brakes, Mopar brakes. And all these things make it possible for us to still buy certain parts. Okay? So, I don't know. I find it very interesting. I find it enjoyable sometimes that I got to restore every part, and not so enjoyable sometimes, because sometimes you want to get done. So, and like I said, you usually have to cut up 2 or 3 of these cars to rebuild one of them. Those days are long over for a jam product. Now you get the car, there's nothing left to it, not even a cowl left in it, and you rebuilt it into one of one rare Z28 that, I don't know, Dunsoff, whatever, signed with his ass cheeks. You know, we can't do that. Fortunately, every time we buy a part, every time I buy a fender, that means there's a car that got crushed or is getting crushed. And I've seen cars being parted out that are a fraction as bad as some of these other ones that are being restored, and it's a shame, because it's just going to wind up where there's no cars left. So I am a station wagon guy. I've loved them since I'm a kid, but like everything else, I love sedans too. So my least favorite car of all the cars we own is the AMX, and that it seems to infuriate AMX guys. How I could like a Concord better than an AMX, but you know, to each his own. So with that said, guys, I guess it was another night of talking. I just think I had to talk for a little while. And as of right now, I got nothing to look at. So I think tomorrow when we get home, we'll start to work on the molding. So I think the first thing that has to be done is to make sure all 5 holes or whatever they are there. I think 1 or 2 of them I had to nip off the screws. So if I can't get the screws out, that means I got to drill a hole right next to it and cover it. So I think the next thing to do is get that molding mounted, so I could take it off, mounted, and mudguard also, so I could take it off and then polish it and just go in there and zip and put it back on one time. Not do all the work and then find out I have problems. So, okay guys, I've talked long enough. I seem to be losing my voice again. That seems to be an issue right now. With that said, anybody that watches, thank you. Hopefully some of you are enjoying it. Sorry I don't leave too many comments. If, like I said, a lot of times if I go on at work and I'm checking comments, it's hard. It's hard. And if I'm out here working, like I said, I'm putting 12-hour days in now. It's hard. I don't have much time to sit there and write comments to everybody. You guys know I appreciate you. And, okay, guys. Talk to you soon.